What's going on, guys? It's Noah, and I am here with Mike today, and in the first video that we have made on this channel for what seems to be like 2.5, 3 months, because my computer, I want to throw it out a window every time I try to record, because a whole bunch of technical shit that I'm not going to go into in this video. But today, we are going to be having a little bit of a discussion about delegates. Not just delegates, actually, but the atmosphere of the Democratic race has kind of brought to light the superdelegate issue for a lot of people. For me, even learning about it in high school, I always kind of felt like it was a slightly corruptible system, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Mike, you want to go ahead and issue your opening statement to the court? No, I'm just kidding.
Opening statement to the court? Good lord, you make it sound like we're serious about this or something.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Oh, okay, well, as long as you are, that makes, half of us. I don't really have quite the same issue with the delegate system in general. It's the superdelegate system that I have pause with, and I am both in support of it and not in support of it, depending on the political atmosphere of the DNC. Because as an organization, the DNC is supposed to be screening applicants who may be able to hornswoggle the American people and make them believe something, which in my opinion is what Hillary is doing. After all of the lying and corruption and the abuse of the people that her husband had an affair with and so on and so forth, I fully and firmly believe that she's lying and cheating her way to the Democratic primary nomination.
Yeah.
So in this particular sense, with the DNC rallying behind her and making sure that she can't be challenged by anyone, with the media coverage being almost completely blacked out on the Democratic side as a whole. They don't want Hillary to debate. They put the debate times at crappy times when there are basketball games and football games going on, so that nobody is watching, so that if she makes a gaffe, if she screws up, it doesn't hurt her chances, which precisely. In turn is making it so that Bernie Sanders doesn't get any coverage, because they have to cover both of them.
Yeah. Plus the media loves a fucking circus, and that's kind of what the Republican side has turned into this cycle.
Honestly, the Democratic side would be even more of a circus if they would allow any coverage of all of the crap that Hillary Clinton has done in her political career. For example, there was recent media coverage about how Hillary won her home state, and it's not her home state. Her home state is Arizona. She bought a house in New York to run for the New York Senate because she could not win at all in any election that was in her home state. And she ran practically uncontested against an incumbent who had done practically nothing in his entire career, and everybody didn't like him, and that was her only competition, and that's the only reason she ever became a senator. So sitting there and saying, I was a New York senator, and cheering and being happy about that and all this other stuff is disingenuous. It's yet another lie, and the media is just lapping it up like cats with a saucer of sour milk.
So yeah, my biggest issue with the superdelegate system on the Democratic side is, well, it doesn't exist on the Republican side, but is that it the amount that they have. And when we were talking about this previously, you had said it was kind of a way for the DNC to voice their pick for the Democratic nomination. And when you brought that up, I didn't really think about it that way at the time, and it does make sense. They should have definitely should have a say in their party's nomination, but at the same time I look down on the whole party system as a whole, because I think it leads to too much pigeonholing of ideas and stuff.
It really does. I cannot disagree with you on that at all, which is why I still stress, and to switch to the Republican side, I believe Donald Trump should have run as an independent and single-handedly shattered the portrayal of a two-party system in this country, introducing a third party. I don't believe we should have a parliamentary procedure like they have in Great Britain, because at that point you have people being elected the prime minister with less than 30% of the vote, because there are 5 different candidates all running, and none of them can get more than 25-26% of the entire population. So a quarter of the country is behind this person, not even a full third, not even half, because of this parliamentary system. So the more parties there are, the more chaos it is, and the fewer overall views wind up making it into the White House, which is why the two-party system was deemed better, and the independent candidates, while they're allowed to run, they don't get much coverage until the primary election.
Yeah.
When they're up on stage with the other two, and even then, those two are the stars, and the independent candidate has to go up against 6 months worth of campaigning from the primaries and have all of their views fully exposed in the first 2 or 3 debates. Otherwise, they get zero traction at all.
Mm-hmm.
But there are 4,051 pledged delegates on the Democratic side, of which only 714 are superdelegates.
I thought it was
So you have
719, but that
well, it
could
may
have
be
been
719 this year. This is information from 2012,
Oh, okay.
I believe. In 2012, there were only 714. So the superdelegates don't necessarily decide a race by themselves. And often, if they wind up in opposition to what the voting suggests, if the superdelegates decide they're going to just jump ship and say, forget what the American people think, we think this person is a better fit, then as a general rule, the next year after the presidential election is completed, the entire DNC leadership gets re-voted on by the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah.
And so these DNC chairs, these 714, 719 people who are all superdelegates, get called out on not following the will of the people, and most of them will be removed from office, resulting in an entirely different DNC for next year.
Yeah.
And
Now,
the next presidential election.
I wanted to bring this up. How many... The DNC... I should have looked this up before the video, but the DNC is just the committee of the Democratic Party. You're not... When you, like... Okay, so when I registered to vote, I registered as independent, but had I chosen to register as a Democrat, would I then become a member of the DNC?
No, the DNC itself is a committee of those 700 some odd people who are elected by their peers in the Democratic Party. Now, if there is a DNC convention, a DNCC, you as a Democratic voter can go there and actually have a say in who sits in those chairs.
Okay, yeah. But still, I find 719 to be entirely too much because, and I had posed this to you last night, but almost the 2 biggest states, it almost beats out both those together. So, like, for example, say Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders wins New York and California by a 100% margin and, like, just gains a huge lead on Hillary. The DNC could effectively render both those 100% margin wins absolutely useless.
If the entire DNC backed Hillary, which they don't.
Almost entirely. I think Bernie has
Mostly.
43 superdelegates out of 719. 48 maybe now. I know a few have switched over to him, but after, like, tons of petitioning from the voters.
Yeah, he's got 38 at the moment,
38,
and she has 502.
502, and there's like 100 that haven't come out in support of anybody yet, or 100.
Come out of the closet?
Yeah.
Well, there was an article I was just reading called Superdelegates Aren't to Blame for Bernie Sanders Losing to Hillary Clinton. He's only gotten, all told, out of all of the votes, just add them all up together, he has received 42% of the votes, and he has 46% of the delegates.
Yeah.
So the superdelegates by themselves aren't to blame for it.
No, not by themselves. Certainly there's an amount of media bias and... I'm trying to think the right word to describe it. Corruption in Hillary Clinton that has led to Bernie being beaten out. And not to mention third wave feminism. Third wave feminism is partly to blame too.
Oh my God! Have you heard the There was a church choir group, all females, that got together and rewrote hymns from the 1800s to have Hillary's name instead of God's.
That's fun. That sounds like a good afternoon.
That sounds like a religion coming together.
It really does.
Like,
well, third wave feminism is a religion. Another reason why I think Bernie Sanders is also losing is because there are an extreme amount of states that do not allow people who are registered as independent to vote for Bernie. Now, I'm not sure if my state, Washington...
Well, the only reason that they can't is because it is not just a two-party system. When you register as an independent, you are registering for that third party. Gary Johnson, his name, Cabe so-and-so from I think, not the Green Party, but another one. And so those are the people that you can actually vote for when you register as independent for the primary. Yeah. However, as an independent, when it comes to the main election, you can change that.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And so it's more of a question of how much did you actually look into the political process in your state? Did you misunderstand the voter registration, so on and so forth? And so most of that blame resides on the individual voter, because when the candidates come out, there's 3.5 months, I believe, before the first primary is even held. And so you have 3.5 months to change your voter registration to match the candidate that you like the most. Yeah. And so when their primary comes up, you can jump in behind and support them.
Yeah. But I also believe that part of the blame lies on Sanders himself for choosing to align himself with the Democratic Party for more media attention, which really hasn't worked out in his favor because he hasn't gotten shit anyway.
Something like that.
Thanks for watching that video, guys. Sorry it was a little bit more rambly than normal. We're still getting back into the flow of things. If you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe for more, and as always, like the video, and our social media is down below. I'm gonna go ahead and let this SMITE game play out if you feel like finishing it. Our next video is due out sometime next week, and we'll see you then. Talk to you guys later.
Empower my blade.
Double kill. An ally has been slain. Bear your soul. Be careful. Unstoppable. An ally has been slain.
Life is so...
You have been slain. An ally has been slain. Divine! An ally has left the game. Sorry. Sorry.
Away we go! Life is so...
You have been slain.
I was born.
have reached your forces. Come to me.
Please?
Bonus round. Get ready to fight. Five, four, three, two, one. Fight. Kill it. An enemy has been slain.
It would be wise to recall back to
Unstoppable.
before the next fight.
Awesome. Awesome. Bonus defeat.